Snow was falling in soft layers outside, turning the street into a glowing river of white under the Christmas lights. Inside her small home, Clara moved slowly, setting out candles and adjusting ornaments on the tree, though her heart wasn't in it. Every Christmas Eve before had been alive with noise family gatherings, children running around, her marriage still intact. But this year, like the last few, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Her divorce had left her with the house, but it never felt the same without laughter echoing in the rooms. The walls seemed to remember the arguments more than the warmth. What she did have, though, was her son, Ethan, who was now 18. He was the center of her world, though she had begun to feel the distance creeping in as he grew older. He had his job, his friends, and his own life, and Clara sometimes feared she was becoming a shadow in his. The clock ticked past 6 when she heard the crunch of footsteps outside and the door opening. Ethan walked in, brushing snow from his jacket, his cheeks red from the cold. He looked so grown, taller than her now, with a tired but confident expression. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice casual, as if it were just another night. Clara forced a smile. "Merry Christmas Eve, sweetheart. Hungry?" He nodded, setting his bag by the door. They sat at the small dining table where Clara had prepared a modest dinner roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and the pie she knew he loved. For a few minutes they ate in silence, the clinking of forks louder than their words. Ethan asked about her day and Clara asked about work, but it all felt light, surface level, not the deep conversations she craved. She looked at him across the table, her son who had once clung to her every word, now answering with short sentences, his mind clearly elsewhere. She knew it wasn't his fault he was growing up. Still, her chest ached. After dinner, Clara suggested they sit by the tree. Ethan followed, flopping onto the couch with the casual ease of youth, pulling out his phone briefly before putting it away. Clara sat beside him, wrapping her sweater tighter around herself, unsure how to bridge the gap between them. Then it happened, so simple, so ordinary. Ethan nudged her shoulder with his, playful, like he used to when he was little. "You look too serious, Mom," he teased, his smile softening the edges of the moment. The gesture was nothing, just a nudge. But to Clara, it felt like a crack in the wall she had built around her heart. That one small movement brought back a flood of memories. Ethan as a boy falling asleep against her chest by the Christmas tree, his giggles when they built snowmen, the way he used to believe she could fix anything. Her eyes softened, and she stared at him longer than usual. He noticed. "What?" he asked, a little awkward, though his tone was gentle. Clara hesitated. She wanted to tell him everything, the loneliness, the fear of being left behind, the ache of watching him grow further away. But the words felt heavy, and she didn't want to burden him. Instead, she said softly, I don't want to lose us, Ethan." The room grew still. Ethan blinked, surprised. His usual casualness slipped away, replaced with something more serious. He leaned a little closer, his voice quieter now. "You won't. I promise." His words warmed her, but promises were fragile things. Life had taught her that. She looked at the Christmas lights reflecting in the window, blinking like little reminders of time slipping by. Could a promise hold back the distance that was already forming? Ethan shifted, resting his arm along the back of the couch, closer to her than before. "You know, I don't say it much, but you're the reason I'm okay, Mom. Everything you've done for me, it matters." Clara's throat tightened. She hadn't expected that. For so long, she had wondered if he even noticed the sacrifices, the nights she stayed awake worrying, the way she tried to keep everything together when her marriage fell apart. To hear him acknowledge it on this quiet Christmas, Eve felt like a gift she hadn't dared hope for. They sat there for a while, the glow of the tree wrapping them in soft light. Outside, the snow kept falling, but inside, something fragile and beautiful was stirring. Clara could feel it. The closeness she had thought was fading wasn't gone. It was still there, waiting, needing only a nudge to awaken it. She closed her eyes briefly, whispering to herself, "It's just one night." But deep down she knew it wasn't. Something had shifted. That playful nudge, that small moment of connection, had opened a door she didn't know she needed. And as the clock neared midnight, with the world outside blanketed in white, Clara felt her heart beating with a mix of hope and fear. This Christmas Eve would not be like the others. Something had changed, and she could no longer pretend otherwise. Christmas morning broke with a soft golden glow spilling through the curtains. Clara stirred awake on the couch, her blanket still wrapped tightly around her. She had fallen asleep there after Ethan went to bed, unwilling to leave the warmth of the tree lights. For once, she didn't mind the stiffness in her neck. The night before had left her strangely light, as though something inside her had been quietly healed. The smell of coffee drifted into the living room, and when she opened her eyes fully, she found Ethan in the kitchen. He was pouring 2 mugs, his hair still messy from sleep. "Merry Christmas, Mom," he said with an easy smile, setting a mug down for her. Clara blinked. "You made coffee?" He shrugged, almost shy. "You always make it for me. Thought I'd return the favor." It was such a small thing, yet it tugged at her heart. She couldn't remember the last time he'd done something like that, not because he was careless, but because he was always rushing through life. This morning, though, he wasn't rushing. He sat across from her, sipping quietly, his phone nowhere in sight. They talked a little about the snow, about how beautiful the street looked under its fresh blanket, about the neighbors already outside shoveling. But soon the conversation dipped deeper without either of them forcing it. Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. "Mum, what you said last night, about not wanting to lose us. It stayed in my head." Clara froze, her hands warming against the mug. She wasn't sure how to respond, but she didn't have to. Ethan kept going. "I guess I've been so caught up in my own stuff, school, work, friends, that I didn't notice how quiet the house felt for you. I don't ever want you to feel like I'm leaving you behind." Her chest tightened. "You don't owe me anything, Ethan. You're supposed to grow, to move forward. That's life." "Maybe," he said softly, "but that doesn't mean I forget where I come from, or who's always been here for me." For a long moment, Clara just looked at him, her grown son with his earnest eyes. The little boy who used to wrap himself in blankets by the fire was still there, hidden but alive. She felt tears prick at her eyes, but she blinked them away. She didn't want to dampen the mood. Instead, she smiled and said, "Well then, help me with Christmas breakfast. That'll make us even." Ethan laughed and jumped up to help. Together they cooked pancakes and scrambled eggs, bumping into each other in the small kitchen, laughing when flour dusted the counter. It wasn't perfect, but it felt alive. Clara realized she hadn't laughed like that in a long time. After breakfast, they exchanged simple gifts. Clara had saved up to buy Ethan a new watch he'd been eyeing. When he unwrapped it, his expression lit up, and for a moment, he looked like the child who used to open presents with wide-eyed wonder. "Mum, you didn't have to," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I wanted to," Clara replied. "It's not about the gift, it's about reminding you that I notice you. Always." Ethan slipped the watch on, staring at it as though it meant more than he could say. Then he handed her a small, neatly wrapped box. Inside was a silver necklace with a delicate pendant. Simple but beautiful. Clara's breath caught. "You bought this?" she whispered. "Been saving from work for months," Ethan said. I wanted you to have something. Something that tells you I see you too. Clara held the necklace in her hand, her eyes blurring with tears she could no longer stop. She hadn't expected anything. She certainly hadn't expected something so thoughtful. It's beautiful, she whispered. Thank you. Ethan hesitated, then said, You've given me everything. I just wanted to give back. The rest of the day passed like a dream. They played old board games, watched movies, and even went outside to shovel snow together, their laughter echoing down the street. Neighbors waved, surprised to see Clara smiling so much. She hadn't realized how closed off she had been until now. That night, as they returned inside, cheeks flushed from the cold, Clara sat by the fire, holding her necklace. Ethan sank into the armchair across from her, the glow of the flames dancing on his face. For a moment, she simply studied him, this boy who was no longer a boy, this man who was still her son. You know, she said softly, this Christmas feels different. Like something shifted. Ethan leaned back, thoughtful. Maybe because we finally said what we needed to. She nodded. It was true. Last night's small nudge had cracked open something in her heart, and today's moments had poured into that space, filling it with warmth. She thought she had lost Dot as the fire crackled. Ethan added, Mom, no matter where I go or what I do, you're home for me. Always. Those words sank deep into her soul. They were more than comfort, they were an anchor. Clara realized she didn't need grand gestures or perfect holidays. She just needed connection, honesty, and moments like these. Later, when Ethan went to bed, Clara stayed by the fire, staring at the snow still falling outside. She thought of last night's nudge, how something so small had shifted her entire world. She thought of the necklace around her neck, the watch on his wrist, the shared laughter, the quiet promises. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the ache of loneliness pressing on her chest. Instead, she felt full of love, of hope, of certainty that she wasn't alone after all. Christmas Eve had given her one small nudge, but Christmas Day had confirmed it. Her world had changed, not because of grand miracles, but because of the simple truth that love steady, quiet, unshakable was still alive between her and her son. And as she closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the fire lull her into peace, she knew this shift would last. Their bond had been tested, stretched, and nearly lost, but now it was stronger than ever. And for Clara, that was the greatest gift of all.